Thank you so much for joining me on this edition of Down to Earth. It's the show in which we talk about the issues that matter, and it is Sunday, January. I hate to say it, but it is the 24th of January, 2021. And what a time to be alive, like literally. We're literally watching as a pandemic that has been raging out of control for almost a year now, globally, and certainly here in America, just seems to be getting out of control. And it makes us wonder, what did the previous administration do? Apparently, they did nothing. It actually seems to be way worse than we thought it was. We knew it was bad, but it seems they knew, they had the data, and they did absolutely nothing. In addition to which, hundreds of millions of vaccines have disappeared. I think they took the vaccines and have sold it overseas to make money for themselves. And they're still, it's one of the worst cases of being the sore loser. It's worse than being the sore loser because you literally are setting yourself up to never have good faith with the public. So when this whole hysteria finally wears off and people come back to their senses and realize how much they were duped by Donald Trump and how much they were taken for a ride down the garden path, then people are going to realize that they were sick unnecessarily. I'm still appalled at the thought that by the middle of February, there will be over 500,000 people dead in America from a virus that did not have to happen. And I must say that, like all of us, I mean, we're all very concerned about it. We're all very worried about it. But where is this coming from? Like, why does it seem to be hitting LA County more? Well, the answer is simple. It's racial inequities, economic inequities in households that are multi-generational. Because we're all wondering, how come white people are not dying from this stuff as much as black and brown people are? Well, the answer lies in economics. In more and more brown households, because can you imagine living in LA County? I can't. Imagine what rent must be like. Imagine the cost of living in LA County. Well, there are people who live, grandparents, parents, and children, and sometimes a fourth generation have to live together in one household because they have nowhere else to live. It's survival. To pay that huge rent, huge mortgage, people have to pool their resources together. When so many people are living in the same households, when one person gets sick, guess what? It spreads much faster. And you're talking about the coronavirus that is very, very contagious. That is far more contagious than the flu, far more contagious than any influenza epidemic there could be. Naturally, people are going to get sick. And people will get sick because maybe they had a virus in their system before, so they become a house for the virus. Because you never really went to the doctor, because you never had health insurance. You probably had other issues, like somebody in the household smokes. Someone else doesn't smoke, but someone does. So those are the factors that are contributing to the high death rates amongst black and brown people. And we keep talking about the racial disparities in healthcare that promotes conditions and environments for viruses like this to rage. And all of this comes down to what? Public policy, white supremacy, and public policy that promotes racial inequities, that promotes disparities in healthcare that continue and continue and continue. If politicians, especially the newly elected ones who are Democratic, if they want to vote, if they want people to vote for them in 2022 and 2024, they must harness the power given to them now that they have a majority in the Senate and overturn this wickedness if they want people to vote for them. Otherwise, give it up to the seditious Republicans who people are electing. People are not electing conservatives anymore. Conservative Republicans who ran just on the idea of big budget and big government. Where are those people? Those were the true patriots. They got left. And the more radical elements who really are not Republican, they just will never be a Democrat because they'll never be a liberal, because the Republicans have been successful at messaging that anybody who is ever a Democrat is a liberal and a communist and a socialist. But look who is more socialist than Republicans. Don't they give away free money to rich people all the time? Just look at what happened last year in the CARES Act. They gave out the money to rich people who didn't need it. And the people who needed the money, instead of giving people 3 continuous months of stimulus checks, they gave huge tax breaks and loans to their friends. Even the president set himself up to get some of those loans. That's republicanism. That's what republicanism is. That's always been politicians in pork barrel and politicians who take money from people. But this was exemplified and underscored under the Trump administration. It was just rip, rip, rip. It's similar to how Kwame Kilpatrick ran Detroit. It was all about him and his family taking money. So the idea of people, this just being, wow, this is new. No, it's not. It really isn't. What is new is that the Republican Party has become so radicalized that there is no appearance of what the Republican Party used to be. I saw George Bush struggling a couple days ago on the inauguration day to talk about republicanism. He couldn't say because the Republican Party that existed under him does not exist anymore. And I hope somewhere he's writhing in agony because he set the stage for Trump to create this idea of fake elections, because he set the example to contest an election that he knew he did not win. It seems to me that whenever Republican governments, whenever Republican presidents control the government, the country is always left. If it's not an economic crisis, it's now a pandemic, it's a health crisis. It seems to me that that's what they specialize in doing. And they always have these egotistic, maniacal followers who are determined to make the rest of us suffer because they just don't like losing. Get a grip. I don't know what is wrong with people. Get a grip and go do something. Get a life. I saw one on Twitter circulating. She was bawling. You know, the ugly cry, the ugly looking cry, bawling how she's begging President Trump to come back. For what? Come back for what? The man ruined the country. Not only did he ruin the economy, he killed off 500,000 Americans. Then when that was not enough, he sent people right into the Capitol to shoot everybody, including his deputy. Said deputy who stood by him nonetheless. Said deputy who is an idiot and is going to look like more of an idiot because he didn't invoke the 25th Amendment and thinks he has a chance to run in 2024. There'll be no Republican Party. Friends, you cannot unite those two factions. The conservative movement, who believes in budget this and this, that movement went away. They've been outpaced and outsmarted and outspoken and silenced by the radicalized fringe elements that Trump did. Face it and admit it. Those people are never going to come back. The people who voted to remove Trump from power, who are Republicans, they're now going to join the band of people called independents. That means they're going to be in the middle, and each election they're going to choose a candidate whom they think is the one best able to run the country. Is that a good idea? It is. Because the two-party factions, it's not working very well, is it? No. Not when you can choose a man based on his personality who has never run government before, has no idea what to do, and then he won't listen to you who has been there before. He fires everyone who knows anything about anything and sets people in place because they must be loyal to him. He's not, if this is how he ran his companies, no wonder his companies went bankrupt, because you don't place knowledgeable people into the space. And I'm concerned about it because where is this going to go? We're going to be fighting this pandemic for the next 8-9 months. Do you realize we're at a dark place right now? How dark is this place? And people are talking about whether they should impeach Trump or not. Hold the man accountable. It is the most disgusting thing that I've ever seen. This whole idea of letting people who are white get away with murder is incredible. The young girl who ran into the Capitol and stole Nancy Pelosi's laptop has been gone. She's going home. What are you sending her home to do? To go foment and start another crisis? That's ridiculous. You know how that happened? The Republicans appointed federal judges. And so federal judges around the country are setting every seditious person free. It is the most racist thing, and this is a setup for a racial war. Watch what's going to happen, because it's going to become apparent to the rest of us that every darned one of them is being set free by Republican appointed judges. But in the summer, you locked up and beat up Black people who were protesting police violence. You imprisoned Black people. You killed Black people for protesting police violence. You almost made some of us shut up. But yet those seditious people, the one who stole Nancy Pelosi's laptop, intending to send it to Russia, she gets to go home. The guy, I think he's from Michigan too. The one who used the flagpole to beat the cop, yeah, that one. He's from Michigan. He's still free. And they're just giving them bail to send them home after all the hard work that the FBI did to go find these people and lock them up. The judges are sending them home. This is how Republicanism is. They are intent on power to the extreme, and they must be controlled. Somebody got to shut them down. Mitch McConnell, Ted Cruz, and all of them, they need to be shut down. They're dangerous. I'm warning you all. These people are dangerous to America, and allowing them to proliferate is going to be the danger that tears this country apart. You don't believe me? Watch what is going to happen in the next few months. You will see exactly what I'm talking about. Mitch McConnell is dangerous because he does not care. He can go live in China. His wife is from China. So he can go live in China. Are you hearing what I'm saying? One of my viewers here. So good morning. The Arizona GOP censured Governor Doug Ducey for having locked the state down at one point, and former Senator Jeff Flake for not supporting Donald Trump. Imagine that. Imagine that. Because it's all about power. I don't think you guys realize the extent to which, see, most of us just walk around in our homes. We have our jobs. So we really aren't paying attention the way we should. Somebody said the other day that democracy is too fragile. Let me explain. As a person born in another country, let me explain. Democracy is always fragile because it is the nature of people to want to always have ultimate power. So the idea of empowering an individual who gets a chance to have some autonomy over themselves and to have some choice in whom they choose to lead them is a very outspaced idea. It's not common to man. It's not something that is our natural inclination. As human beings, our natural inclination is to always be in positions of power, to always be able to exert power and exercise power and harness power and hold power. That's our natural inclination. So democracy then is an ideal. It exists because some people say, I would rather have the ability and the autonomy to choose who leads me and the autonomy to make decisions over my life than to have someone else do it. Democracy is something we have to fight for. And let me put you on watch. The Republican Party does not want that because they're the party of the extreme. It has now become glaringly apparent. Are you disappointed? You bet the hell I am. I cannot believe a party that says they're more American than everybody else. They're so red, white, and blue is the very same party tearing apart the very red, white, and blue just because they want to have power. Mitch McConnell says that the Senate is the most powerful legislative body in the world. So he wants to sit there as Senate Majority Leader. He's out of it and he still wants what he wants. Don't give him jack. Let him go back to Kentucky and sit his little old ass self down and give it up. The problem is the persons coming behind him are worse than him. Because they want to make sure, like Mitch McConnell had power for 35 years, they want to have power forever. That was Donald Trump's ideal. He wanted to be president for 12 years, y'all. It's like Dianne Feinstein. What's wrong with these people? She applied to be senator again for the next 6 years. She'll be 91. Give it up. and let younger people with fresh ideas and energy and different ideas come into the space to run the country. As Biden said, we own the 20th century. We can own the 21st century. It's either us or China or Russia. Which one it's going to be? You're so consumed with power and the pursuit of power, you're not even thinking of the big agenda. It is the craziest thing I've ever heard. Let me back up a little bit. So here comes the Republican Party. They under Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump, they appointed federal judges all over the place. You know that by now. They appointed over 250 federal judges. You also know the same Republican Party who controlled the Senate in 2020 rammed through a Supreme Court justice in 8 days because they want to control, right? I hope that stuff blows up in their faces. The only person older than Feinstein is our hairdresser. That's funny. The said Republican Party. So what is this about? Whose interest does the Republican Party serve? The interest of big business. Now look at that. They wanted the GOP in Arizona wants to censor Cindy McCain. Cindy McCain has more money than they are. She should just tell them to go take a hike up in the Arizona desert. That's what I would do. You don't tell me what to do. You don't get to tell me to choose a man who is dangerous to the country. This dude was ready to put his short little fingers on the nuclear codes and fire off nuclear weapons without thinking of the consequences. They showed a clip recently of him when Dr. Fauci was trying to explain at the beginning of the pandemic how the pandemic was. And Trump was looking at the guy like he wanted to tell him off. Now, anybody who has been in Washington for a while, you don't really play around presidents because they have a lot of power. We need to check that and put some more checks and balances in place. We need to check that. Presidents should not have all the power or ultimate power because it's clear that you give somebody like a loose cannon like Donald Trump, who might have some issues that have been undiagnosed for some time, right? The more you observe his behavior is the more you begin to realize that. So everybody around him knows that he's unhinged, but they put up with it. They deal with it. Yikes, right? So you don't give someone like him untapped power. We need to do this. These are the issues that are confronting us. We need to tap the power of the presidency. We can't just give it to him that he can give 143 pardons to felons who have murdered people. Oh my God. He could have given the Tiger King guy a pardon. He didn't kill anybody, just some animals. He gave it to people who killed people. He pardoned Kwame Kilpatrick. Okay, Kwame should never have served 28 years for corruption because no white man is in jail for 28 years for bribery and corruption. They go into jail at 28 years for murder, conspiracy to murder, assault, but not for corruption. That was too punitive, is a nice way of saying it was too damn much and was racist in the extreme. So Kwame should have served 2 or 3 years and been out by now. 7 years was a bit long. You're looking at this from the perspective of race in America. In other words, what's becoming glaringly apparent is that you can no longer separate race from the political decisions that are being made. It is very clear that the people who are in power and who are making decisions are doing it from a racial perspective. Now, it always was the case, but they covered it over with a patina of some level of compassion or attempted compassion and empathy. Now they're just all out there. I just want power. Look at Ted Cruz strutting around the Senate like he has a right, like he should still be, after he promoted a riot to come in there to shoot people off. Y'all ain't saying nothing to me. Y'all sitting here acting like it's normal. It ain't normal in America, and it shouldn't be normal anywhere. And if we, the people, don't stand up and start demanding, y'all need to use your Twitter fingers and start demanding to the majority, the Senate Majority Leader Schumer, and to the Speaker Nancy Pelosi that it's time for accountability. We demanded action, and the FBI stepped in, went and looked for these people, handed them over to the courts. And then the judges gave them up. We need to start taking action and say, who are these judges who are letting these seditious people free? What kind of system are we creating where people can do stuff and get away with it because they're white? So to the ordinary guy in the street, what does it look like to him? Oh, so you can go burn down the Capitol and get away free, but I go out there and march against police brutality, and you lock me up and shoot me in the back 7 times and get away with it. So they can go in and take Nancy Pelosi's laptop and get away free. But George Floyd is dead after our police knelt on his back, on his neck for 8 minutes and 48 seconds. Are you listening to me? If you think this stuff is not going to boil over, think again. Breonna Taylor is dead because a cop felt that he could shoot unmitigatedly into her house. But the cop who killed the cop, the guy who killed the white man, who killed the cop on duty in the Capitol building, ain't nothing happening to him. That's the message. What does that say? To a black and brown person, it says if you are white, you will get away scot-free with anything. If that was the message that the Republican Party wanted to convey, they got it clear. But knowing them, they're not smart enough. They don't think things through. They told the judges to let these people go because these people are their supporters and they want their votes in 2022 and 2024. Again, they're looking at the short term. They're not looking at the long-term message. And frankly, who are they anyway? They were racist from the beginning. They don't give a care because they've always felt like they have the power and they will continue to have the power. We cannot let them get away with it. There has to be an accounting. And I'm calling for action. Everybody who is listening to me, you need to let Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi know you now have control and the power of the Senate. The people have voted you in and given you the power. Use it and hold Trump and his band of seditious rebels against the United States. Hold them accountable. Try him, impeach him, convict them all, and strip them of their power. Everybody who was involved with that. Everyone. It wasn't enough for you to get into a hysteria. I watched Ted Cruz, who is a senator in Texas, object to the election's results in Arizona. You live in freaking Arizona? You senator from Arizona? How is Arizona not rising up and saying, how dare you? Why are you all quiet? Why are you all quiet, lulled into a false sense of security? It is false. You think Russia is going to attack us? Russia knows that with Biden in there now and Kamala, they kind of have control of the nuclear codes and stuff. They ain't going to try anything because these people going in, they have a different agenda. But you know who we are worried about? The people who are right here who call themselves Americans. Our greatest danger is not some foreign power. It's not some guy marching across the Bering Straits. It's not some guy looking for a plane to fly into a tower. Our greatest danger is among us. People who are going to start doing things because they're angry. And they have a right to be angry because they're white and they don't like the direction of the country. You haven't liked the direction of the country since Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964. I bet you haven't liked it since then. You haven't liked the direction of the country because, according to you, immigrants are taking your jobs. Well, Mohammed is an anesthesiologist. What's your name again? Oh, you're John Brown? Show me Dr. John Brown around here. My doctors have names that end in vowels. Scientists, even professors now have names that end in vowels because you all white folks didn't want to go to school. There was a time when you wanted all to be stockbrokers because that's where the money was. But you aged out of. Your kids don't want to go to school. They're lazy. They would rather sit down and play on the internet than they would study to go to school. See, no matter how advanced our society becomes, you still need scientists and doctors and engineers. Your kids, white kids, don't want to study that long. They go to school, get a bachelor's degree in the humanities, and they come out and want to be a world changer. And because there are other white people who will promote them, they don't have a damn clue how to do anything. They think that they should get it all the time. They don't. Don't you all see that? So you're angry because you can't live in the same house that Muhammad lives in. Well, Muhammad paid the price. Dr. Yusuf paid the price. Dr. Chandra paid the price. They went to school. They studied. Meanwhile, you just sat back and thought it would come to you because you're white. You just made that stupid assumption. And now you look stupid as stupid goes. And you're angry at your own stupidity. The rest of us, it was you who set the pace. You told us that in order for us to work in government jobs, we had to go get degreed while you all just graduated high school. We aren't quite in Arizona. That's why Arizona has no more Republican senators. We aren't done either. We aren't quiet in Arizona. Okay. Well, start asking Ted Cruz, why are you commenting on Arizona's elections? Because that was the question I was asking on Twitter. How come Ted Cruz feels that he can comment and object to elections in Pennsylvania and Arizona? I'm like, don't even start with Michigan because people over here, our mouths are loud. When I say, where you come from, what you doing over here? What interests you have over here? They will shut the hell up because it's bullying. Do you see what I mean? They felt that they could use the power of the Senate behind. You're presumptuous, assuming you have a power that you don't really have. Are you all seeing this? It's what you would call a plate tectonic shift. It's like the very earth under us has shifted. That's how white people feel. They feel like the shift has happened. And to the rest of us, it's about darn time. The shift happened from the minute you set foot on American soil and stole the land from the natives, from Native Americans, and killed them off. It was never going to stay in your hand forever. We're going after all of them. Josh Hawley is on my radar. Why? Because he fist bumped and told them it was okay. And the other one, and Lauren Boebert. Listen to me. Listen to how this whole thing is jacked up. I found out the other day that Lauren Boebert never even graduated high school. Are you all hearing me? She never even graduated high school. She got a GED 6 months ago. She was running a restaurant. Now, you can say, well, okay, nobody's disparaging about what kind of job you have. But think about it. You're going to go make legislation and pass legislation, and your last job was you were running a restaurant, and you don't even have a high school diploma. You didn't go to college. You didn't take time out to even go to community college and get an associate's degree. Meanwhile, your colleagues are lawyers and constitution law professors, right? Your colleagues, her colleagues in Congress are people who are ex-judges. Her colleagues are people who studied. And she just graduated. She didn't even graduate high school. She got a GED. That's the radical Republican element who voted her in. They hate intellectualism. They hate people who are thinkers because it makes them feel not smart. Last year, 2019, I was in some Republican circles talking about the impact of immigration. I'm an immigrant. And at the time, the Trump administration wanted to shut the door to all immigrants. I came to the United States because of violence against me. The United States was a safe haven. It was somewhere my whole family, my friends, told me to run to escape the violence of my husband. I couldn't get any laws passed. This is 20 odd years ago. I couldn't change the laws where I lived. I couldn't do anything about it. They told me, go to America. You'd be better off. I came to the United States. Now, women from Central America are in the same position I was in 20 odd years ago. They're running and escaping violence. So here I am in front of Republicans who hate immigrants, and I had to ask the same question. You're turning your backs on people like me. Ronald Reagan said America is the city on a hill, the shining city on a hill. And I said, so you would have turned. So I am what those people, those women are. I am who they are. So they shut down talk about immigration because they recognized going into an election it was fractious. Sometimes you have to go into the enemy's camp and take your victory, because that was the victory. If it had it not been for America, and ironically, this is the setup. You're not going to believe this. Joe Biden, with all his flaws, ironically, he was the author of the Violence Against Women Act. That made people like me could come to the US and live here in peace. So let me ask you this. What do you think someone like me is going to do about all this stuff going on? Sit back and be quiet and let it run down the drain so that in the future, other people like me who have similar issues can't think that they can escape totalitarianism and authoritarianism? I can't sit quiet. Brother Fuge, what you saying? This is what Donald Trump said. He loves the uneducated. Yeah, because he can twist them and manipulate them and make them malleable. He can't get to your mind and mine because we think. It bounces off. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Are you dumb or are you dumb? But he can get them and rile them up. And instead of taking care of themselves like they did in Nebraska, they walked for miles to go hear him say something like he's the next Messiah. And then Trump just got on Air Force One and flew out of there while the cameras were still rolling on the number of people who showed up. The man is unhinged and has been unhinged. He lives in a world where it's separate from reality. Trump has always been a rich man. He does not know how to identify with poor people. He doesn't see why that is his problem. People like that are dangerous in politics, because to be in government means you have to start somewhere and feel some level of empathy for people. Trump never had that because he never lived in those circumstances. So he would always then be looking for people like himself, because that's his class. That's his group. That's the people whom he grew up with, went to school with, played with. He didn't play with some guy known on the block. He grew up with people who were multimillionaires like himself. So that's a class thing. So he was going to look out for the people who are just like him. He was going to, because they can make a deal. What kind of deal is he going to make with you, poor people? Not a damn thing. What do you have to offer him but the power of your vote? And if he can, he's going to take away that power, because as he said, people in Detroit should not get to choose a president. That's code for saying black people should not choose presidents. What does that tell you? That if he thinks that way about black people, he also thinks that way about everybody who is non-white. Typically, when people are racist, they don't distinguish. So some of you are saying, well, what about the black people who are around Trump? They're practicing what we call self-hatred. It means they hate themselves. They hate the projection of themselves that white people see. So they're trying to say, I'm not a bad black person. So they do everything to change the narrative. They're trying to survive in a racist world. They're extremely traumatized, but they live in total denial. So we don't even bother with them, because to disassemble, they need therapy. And not even a therapist can help them. They end up drinking. They're usually heavy drinkers, to be honest with you. They're usually very heavy drinkers. They drink to cope with the foolishness, because they know that a man who hates black people, he must hate me no matter how I try to not be black. How are you going to try to not be black and you're born in the skin? It's like trying not to be white. You're born in the skin. Don't you see that? These uneducated people who are out there, and some of the people who voted for Trump were not necessarily uneducated either. Let me just be clear about that. There were white women who were educated with college degrees who went out and voted for him. They did not want somebody like a Kamala Harris or a Michelle Obama to ever get near power. But you got to understand that you set the game in place. 50, 60, 70 years ago, you did not want people like myself and Michelle Obama and Kamala Harris to ever have access to anything good. So you said that in order for you to work for the government or work anywhere, you got to have a college degree. So black people and brown people sent their kids to college. You didn't send your kids to college because you didn't have to. Because you thought you would always have the power. You think it's the immigrants who are coming in who are diluting the power and diluting the color? No, it's economics. Pure and simple. You just did not work for it. It's economics. Manufacturing jobs went away. So the factory jobs went away. So the factory jobs that they would pass from generation to generation, hence the reason why they didn't go to college, those jobs passed away because American companies found it was more profitable for them to do business overseas and have overseas workers do the same job than American workers. It's called globalization. That's what happened. So the factories began shutting down. When the factories began shutting down, whole communities became obliterated. So there were white people who thought that this was going to be a way of life forever. It disappeared. They had to move to the city, but to get jobs in the city, you had to be educated. Some of them chose not to be. They wanted it the way it was because it was easier. They're just lazy. That's all it comes down to. And when they don't get what they want, they go storm the Capitol. And the Republican Party sits back because they're looking forward to another election cycle where they think they're going to win. Are you going to let them win? Are you going to sit back seriously and let these racist people assume power again? Seriously? Is that what you want? You want to live in their world? You saw what their world looks like. When it comes to the securing of women's rights, they trip over themselves to get to black women because sisters are fearless. You best believe. Let me read this other one. I love the uneducated. I can't get over that part. I can't get over that. Are you seeing what I'm saying? So black women, we had no choice but to go to school and get educated. We sent our girls to school. We sent our boys to school. We didn't have a choice to survive. You have young black educated people walking around with 3 degrees earning $19 an hour. Meanwhile, white people get promoted. Can't do the job. But they're in position because another white person is determined to help the white race up. Y'all need to sit down. Yeah, I said it. I said it. Look at me. I'm not afraid of you all. I said you all need to sit yourselves down. You're stupid and you're destroying the country. Sit down and let somebody else who have more sense than you run the country and change the tide of where this country is going. Sit down and go drink your whiskey or whatever it is that you drink, your moonshine, sitting out under a tree and howling at the animals in the woods. Go sit down. Enough of this stupidity. I'm sick and tired of watching you all make a mockery of this country. Go sit down. And to all of you who are in the Congress, are you ashamed? You should be. Trying to hold on to power. Pretty soon you won't have any power. You think this is going to go your way all the time? And you're all in church this morning, claiming to be good Christians. I often wonder, you are aware that your prayers are hitting an empty ceiling by now because it hasn't happened your way. So maybe, just maybe, you're praying to the wrong person. It's not going to go that way. America exists for a reason. Let me tell you the purpose of America. America exists because God created America to be a symbol of hope to people all around the world, that they can live in a place where they are free to think, they're free to be whom they want to be. That is the promised land. America is the promised land. Remember in the story of the Bible where God told the Jews that he was going to bring them to the promised land and they searched for it? A land flowing with milk and honey. Then they got to Canaan and they had to drive out the other people in the land. America is the promised land. The promise to be whom you can be if you work hard enough is what this country is about. God is not going to sit back and let the Ted Cruzes and the Josh Hawleys and the Lauren Bieberts run roughshod over it. We watched it all unfold because we have to make a choice. Is that what you want? Or do you want the America where you are free to be whom you want to be? Most of us are not going to let it happen. And the way this is going, the Republicans are setting the stage for Joe Biden to have a massive problem. Joe Biden is going to have a racial war on his hands in a few because they're freeing the white seditionists but jailing black people for pulling people over for weed. I don't even know what the legal limit is. Pulling you over for you don't have tags on your vehicle. You don't have insurance. You're jailing black and brown people for that because they're poor. But white seditionists get to walk out of court free. So they're setting Joe Biden up to have a racial reckoning, similar to what the Republicans encountered in 2020 under their leader, Donald Trump. They knew Trump was wrong, and it makes them look bad. The only way they can recover is to make it seem like that's a problem you have generally because Biden had it, so they're giving it to him. But they might have tested the wrong man because Biden is a man of faith and a man of steel reserve. He's not a Donald Trump. He's not new to this rodeo. This was new to Trump. It's not new to him. He still has a ram in the bush that he's going to pull out of his hands and call this thing. It was interesting to me to watch Dr. Fauci come back to the forefront and be allowed to digress on the science. You realize, America, what we're in? We're in this new reality. The wars we're going to fight are not on battlefields anymore. They've been trying to tell you since Obama. Where have you been? Being stupid, drinking moonshine out in the damn woods. That's where you've been. That's not where we're fighting battles anymore. The battles we're fighting are an invisible enemy. It's called viruses. You realize what we're fighting? We're in that new era. But we were set up by Obama to fight it. And Trump came along and disbanded it. He said it wasn't necessary. And he was unchecked by Mitch McConnell and the Republican Senate. They didn't check him. They didn't say, no, don't do that because we don't know. You should have that just in case. Trump disbanded it because he wanted all the attention on himself. And you all were having a party in Washington. You all were schmoozing and partying like this party was never going to stop. Come on now. Washington is a funny place, isn't it? The tides change. And the tide turned on Trump in a way that he might retaliate. You think he's done? They have to keep deplatforming him so he never gets a platform to talk to people. Cut him off. The MORE Act addressing outdated marijuana laws is awaiting a vote in the Senate, which Mitch McConnell can no longer block from going to the floor. I can't say it enough. We need to get rid of some of these folks. Feinstein needs to go. Mitch McConnell needs to go. They're outdated. They have outdated ideas. Look, these people came of age when black people couldn't even vote. That just tells you. If they're in their 80s, so they were born from the early 1940s. So they came of age, so they knew about civil rights. They were watching this stuff as a young person. And you still think those people have a relevant idea and are forward and progressive thinking for the way the country is going? No, just no. I'm telling you, we're headed for something. And the blood is going to be on the hands of Republicans who allowed this to happen. I'm going to tell it because I don't want to be held responsible. But I'm telling you, we're headed for a racial reckoning because letting free all these seditionists and imprisoning black and brown people for being poor, for not having money, so you can't get yourself out of jail, for not owning property. But you let the seditionists who stole Nancy Pelosi's laptop, who beat police officers, and yet you lock up black people and shoot black people blind. At the same time, white police officers kill black people. We're headed down that road. We need to get rid of Josh Hawley and Senator Ted Cruz. Why? They're leaders and they prompted a mob. You can't have them in there because what that is saying, there's a guy sitting out there just watching this saying, you know what? They shouldn't have done that. I know, see how I can get around it. You got to shut it down so that nobody else ever gets the idea that there is a cult movement they can create around their personality. You may have another Donald Trump. He probably will just smile a lot more if we're not careful. Don't go to sleep. Don't fall asleep at the switch. We're living in an age when we have to be hyper vigilant. You can't sit back. And as you can see, the battles are not fought. I got to go. The battles are not fought on the battlefields anymore, or battlefields have changed. It's social media. Donald Trump harnessed the power of social media to mobilize people into an idea that he created in a very short space of time. We got to change our methods and understand that we have to do the same things and more. Employ this, use your brains and start thinking. You want to save America? This is how we're going to save America. We're going to have to punish the people who almost brought America to the level of a third world country where you don't have freedoms. We got to change that. It can't happen. This is a republic, then we need to be republic-y about it and shut down even those who claim to be patriots, but were on July 4th, we're taking plane trips to Moscow to beg Moscow to intervene in the elections on behalf of Donald Trump. All these people need to be held accountable. Every one of them. And the judges who were appointed, they need to be erased and eliminated. They need to go because they're partisan, because they're letting these people walk out free. My God, my God, my God. Unbelievable. Do you see where we're going? The race is not given to the swift, but to those who endure. America, wake up. This was never going to be a quick race. We're always going to be tested. In a few years, we're going to be 250 years. The very fact that you could hold a democracy spread out over this vast land space for 240-something years is remarkable. But if we want to walk into the future free, there's some things that we got to do in the present right now. We got to punish the people who thought it was a bad idea to think that this was free. We got to punish those people. And by punishing them, you lock them away as an example so others will look and say, this can't work. You got to get rid of a president who believes that he slaughtered more people than any other president in American history. There are over almost 500,000 people dead from a virus that could have been contained. But he allowed it to happen. Even under Jim Crow, even under Reconstruction, the most racist president did not do that, y'all. Yet you had a man in modern American history who did that. He's got to pay the price for that. He has to be punished. You trusted him. You gave him the power to run the country. You gave him the power to lead the country, and he mistook it and used it violently against the people. He must be punished. You must do it to protect this republic. Otherwise, 50 years from now, we rise up in the same problem. Do it now. We must do it. We must hold them accountable. Every one of them, the Cruzes, all the senators who participated, you must hold them accountable. Otherwise, we're going to find a problem later on. We must hold it in check. We've got to take control of the republic and bring it back. Bring it back. Rein it in. We got to stop this virus and stop people from being on the fringe and talking about this is not a virus. It is ridiculous. People are dropping like flies in America. Are you looking at yourselves and seeing you have the resources? You won't feed your own people, and you have food piled up in supermarkets and won't give it to the people, and you can do it. America, wake up, wake up, wake up. This is not the America that God created. This is not the America I had for you. Come on. Wake up and change the tide. It is in your power. It is in your power, Pelosi. Wake up. Stop dreaming. It will not go away. It will not go away. You can't wish it away. You've got to change it. This is Harriet Chemical. I'm done today. This is done. Fix it. And you can fix it now. Good day. Have a good one. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks, everybody. Be blessed.